Alright, we're live. Welcome back, everyone, for another fan battle. This time, I guess Vedant is probably still in a sugar coma from Diwali, so he will not be here for this battle, though. We have a couple lined up, so we might be seeing more of the last challenger, Vedant. This time is going to be Saketh, who already played against a Moog maybe, 2 weeks ago or something. And we have a new challenger named Anandh, who is from our YouTube community, so welcome to Anandh. We're just waiting for them to get into the match, and I don't really know Anand very well. I know a lot of the other players on my Discord just because they've been at it for a while. So Anand is a little bit of a dark horse. We could see any kind of performance from him. It should be a very interesting match. And Saketh has been showing some strong tactics lately from what I've heard, so he might also be overperforming his rating. I think this is also a match where we're going to see something of a disparity in the on paper levels of the players. Oh, let me change the. I didn't change some stuff. Silly me. There we go. Anyway, so let's maybe take a look at the profiles. I know this looks a little goofy, but I don't really want to switch it over and over again. So anyway, Anand's been playing on light chess even longer than I have, it looks like. Maybe even farther back than 2018. I joined last year, maybe in April. And his ratings are all over the place, but, you know, we're seeing a pretty strong upward trend. Let me just make sure you guys can see that. Yeah, so he has an upward trend, and recently his tactics have kind of dipped down, and so that's Anandh. And Saketh has a really odd serial number type name that I can never remember, no matter what. Let's see. It's like S302 or something like that. Hold on. S302. Yeah, I thought this was like a phone number when I saw it. Alright, so this is the guy. His ratings have been pretty consistent, but he's also been overperforming lately in individual games that I've seen, so should be a very close match, even though their ratings aren't necessarily like right there with each other. Okay, so let's see if they're in the game yet. I know the challenge has been sent. Got a notification of that in the Discord. Alright, so the players are in the game, and we're seeing the clock and everything, so it's off to the races. So in this game, you can see Anand's rating he's weighing in at 1822, and Saketh is coming in at 1669. So it looks like a big difference, but they played some practice games right before this and ended in a draw, so anything could happen. And welcome to person. Whomst of ever thou mightst be. Person. Alright, and we have E4 from Anandh. Best by test. You know, there was another Anandh who played E4. I can't quite put my finger on it. Who that Anandh might have been. Alright, the players are, by the way, muted, so they can't hear the stream. So they're not going to be influenced by any of my banter. Okay, so now we have some kind of Italian thing. There was an opportunity briefly for white to go in for a very sharp play with knight g5, but here we're seeing the center fork trick. So he sacrificed a knight on e4, but then d5 wins the piece back. The idea with doing this is just to get very good development. You know, you end up with the same material, so if you're thinking only about material, it seems pointless, but getting the d5 move in with gain of time is very useful. And here we're seeing maybe a particularly good version for black, and quick as you like. The players are moving pretty quickly here. First thought of the game looks like where to put the queen. You know, I taught Saketh and many others how to neutralize this center fork trick, at least a little bit. I mean, yeah, so Anandh doesn't know, right? Because I don't really know Anandh, but this idea with bishop takes d5 is a little bit deficient. Let's take a look, just briefly, because I know that they're making moves. So usually you should play a move like bishop d3 to preserve your bishop pair. The way that it went in the game, the material's even. You know, the queen's now on a5, but black has two bishops against just one bishop. So if things get very open, the long range powers of the bishops will be enhanced. So you'll see maybe a slight edge. But since it's such a fast time control, 10 minutes is barely even chess. It might not even matter to have such a slight edge. But I find that players of all levels, once they know about the bishop pair, they can leverage it very effectively against players in their rating bracket. So I think it's still important, even for low level games. And when I say low level, I mean like not in the top 100. We're not talking about like Carlsen and Lenderman and all these guys. Okay, interesting decision not to develop a piece from black. This position has sort of a Scandinavian defense feel, and for that reason I actually think white is better. Not because Scandinavian defense is bad, but when one plays Scandinavian defense, it's very important to have a retreat for the queen. But because of the knight on c6, it looks like that's not possible, and black is going to have to keep moving that queen many, many times. But on the other hand, usually when you play Scandinavian defense, you don't get the bishop pair. In fact, often black loses the bishop pair for initiative and counterplay. So we have a very interesting opening position, I guess, is the number one takeaway so far. Anything could really happen here. Queen e2, I guess. Anandh is going for a flexible castling situation. You know, he's not declaring if he wants to go this way or this way. Oops. Now, I hope you guys will be proud of me. I finished my breakfast before the stream started this time, but it looks like I'm still a little woozy, so my arrows are a little off. So it's not castling, it's castling. a6, another kind of passive move from black. I'm not sure I get it. I think that just because you have the bishop pair doesn't mean you can like go full passivity. You have to start using the pieces, right? Like these bishops are just sitting. The black king's in the center. Something could happen here. I think white could even start thinking about pawn sacrifices. We'll see. A pawn sacrifice that comes to my mind is something to open the d file, because you know if the king's in the middle, queen's eyeing king, we might want to bring a rook somehow to the d file and play d4, that kind of thing. So white's opting for castling, not too sharp, but with this pretty big lead in development, I think it's not so important for white to go ham. It's just maybe my personal preference. So, is black going to develop a piece or what? Let's see. We could see like any bishop move. I have a feeling he'll play this one, although I don't necessarily think it's very good. But there's also this and this. Alright, he played bishop e6. Another option was bishop e7, which is very sensible. So it looks like black is saying, I want to castle queenside and maybe go for an all-out attack. I don't think it's justified, necessarily, to go for an all-out attack, but that's often what people want when they castle queenside, at least at a lower level. He could also just be trying to develop the pieces, not declaring any intentions. Rook e1 is kind of hinting at a central break because he's putting pressure, but I think it's a little too late for that since black is finally castling. A second ago, I was thinking about playing d4 in this position to try to spice things up, take advantage of the fact that black has just played lots of pawn moves and lots of queen moves. But now it's maybe like any edge that white has from development is sort of diminishing. It's hard to say what the best move is for white here. Like, is there any thesis in their position? I'm not confident that there is, but white is also under a little bit of time pressure. We got 6 against 7 minutes right now. that could kind of snowball into a big time advantage. We saw that in the match between Saketh, who's playing black in this game, and Amog a couple weeks ago. A couple times Amog just thought for a very long time, and it was his undoing in the match. Excuse me. This is sort of a redundant move, but it's also with gain of time, so you can be picky choosy as white here about where you put your pieces. That's fine. I have a feeling that black maybe has a strong response, though. See, the queen doesn't actually belong on c5 anyway, right? So chasing it might be somewhat to black's advantage, because they want to relocate the queen anyway. They don't have to do it under more ambiguous circumstances. Let me see. Can you guys see this at the bottom? Actually, at the bottom it shows that they played only one game and it was a draw. It was actually a kingless draw. You can probably see it over the board right now. This is the final position from the only game that they've played. Alright, so it's queen d6. I think this is something of a dubious decision. For one thing, if white ever finds knight e4 useful, it will come with a gain of time. So you're not moving the queen out of complete danger. It also is obstructing this bishop. So if he's putting on d6, he might be declaring that he wants the bishop here, or that he's going to play some combination of pawn moves and put the bishop somewhere completely different. d4 at this point when the king's not in the center. I'm not sure about it. Since black is very behind in development, but they have the bishop pair, trading a lot of pieces is probably going to benefit them. Of course, it's preferable not to lose the bishop pair just like that, but... Sorry, guys. So, yeah, I think this is the right capture. This is opening the position somewhat, but black's king is no longer in danger. Main threat, queen e6. But it's a simple threat, so it can be avoided, yeah, in a pretty simple way. But now black can't play bishop e7 because it's hanging, so the position remains a little bit tricky. The bishop on d4 is hanging now, so there was an opportunity to swap all the bishops. I don't think that was a terrible option for black either, but I think he wants to preserve that bishop pair. Alright, queen b4. I thought queen b4 would actually come up a couple moves ago, like here. So it's interesting that he's only playing queen b4 after exchanges. Maybe we'll ask Saketh if there was a big reason behind that during the post-mortem. Black's time edge has remained pretty small throughout, so it could be the case that Anand's time management is actually good, even though he's down a little bit. It's usually good to invest some time early on to get a good position, and then the position can play itself even in time pressure. People often do it the other way. They rush through the whole early part of the game, even in positions that they've never seen before, and then they get into time pressure and start like burning all their time. It's better to go the other way generally. Hey Vedant, I wasn't sure we'd be seeing you today since there was a rumor about your sugar coma. How are you feeling? Here's another sort of redundant move. I guess this was a trap because he was anticipating black playing bishop c5. I think bishop c5 was a blunder in this case. Anandh will probably spot it. It's fairly simple. Let's see. He didn't spot it. Maybe I'm missing something. I thought queen f5 check was just winning the bishop for free. Yeah, maybe he was thinking only on positional grounds, like that he has a small development lead and he wants to maintain, and he wasn't looking for tactics. We'll have to ask him. I think it was a simple tactic, though. But this guy's 1800 and he missed this one move double attack, so, there could be something to it. But maybe it's going to be a fair match. The rating doesn't necessarily mean you're going to spot every tactic on the board. Yeah, the position's very interesting. That's true. Vedant. But it's starting to look kind of like it's going to be a pure bishop against knight endgame, which is a lot more technical than it really had to be. Sorry I keep coughing, guys, but sometimes it is what it is. All right, hopefully Saketh keeps his cool here after queen d7. Queen g4. Did we see something here in this position? Yeah, queen g4 would be picking up a pawn. I think both players are missing a lot of stuff, maybe because of the time pressure. They're both down to just 3 minutes in our 10-minute segment. For anyone who's new here, that was also probably not a very ambitious move, but for anyone who's new to this, we do 2 10-minute games, and then we do 2 5-minute games, and if it's 2-2 at the end of that, we play 1 Armageddon 3-minute game, and then we go to the analysis. So you can look forward to us discussing all the games at the very end, which will be in probably like maybe another 45 minutes, something like that. Neil's here. Welcome, Neil. You have mixed feelings about this? Like this position or this life or what? Queen e5 looks pretty strong. I think this is Saketh's way of saying I want a free pawn. Yeah, next week we're going to see Vedant against Neil. And in the more near future, I believe I've already scheduled... hold on. Somebody scheduled, I think, for tomorrow, and then next week is Neil Vedant, and then also George against Max, which should be a very, very interesting match, if you ask me. Alright, knight d5. Kind of an expected move, although I'm not sure it does that much. It just kind of is like, my knight's in your face. How do you feel about it? Not necessarily creating a real threat. Not that I see anyway. Yeah, maybe it was like a trapping move. I kind of saw this possibility of bishop c2 and rook c1, and now c7 is hanging. Even though, if you're doing the bookkeeping, you both lose 1 pawn, but black's king will be much more dangerous with, for example, a rook on c7. I don't think there's significant danger for white yet, just regarding the back rank ideas. Oops, sorry. Just because, like, let's say, they move the bishop and we play rook c7, queen e1 check, king h2. The only check is queen e5 back, so it's not clear if it's useful or not. This is an interesting decision. He's like, okay, I'm going to lose the pawn. I'm going to do it in style. But I have some misgivings about this because this represents a weakening of black's king position overall. Even if white doesn't go for complications involving like rook c2, they might do other things and just say my position is good. I have a feeling that white has the edge, but after rook c2, I'm not so sure anymore. This is kind of simplifying things overly much, Maybe the players are getting anxious as the time is dwindling, but Generally, knight and queen are a superior attacking unit at close range than the queen and the bishop are. So white had some just generally good prospects with the knight on the board, especially considering that it was, right there. Knight c7, I think they had queen c7. I didn't really consider it. No, there's no queen c7 because of queen takes e8 check, right? So yeah, maybe knight c7 was interesting, but it's also like it's probably not coming out. It might get complicated after like rook c8. I'm just not sure about knight c7. I was thinking like maybe knight e3 or something, but let's see what the players are doing since we're probably going to see a lot of moves here. By the way, there's a little bit of lag. I'm seeing the chat a little bit after things are being played, so sorry for the transmission delay, everyone. I can't respond completely in real time, but I'm trying. Yeah, good fan challenge. What will the final score be? Any takers? So maybe we could break it down into what do you think the match score will be? Like, will it be? Ooh, okay. We have a rook end game. Do you think the score will be like 2-2 or like 1-3 or whatever in this segment? And then you could also weigh in about if you think we're going to see our first Armageddon. We haven't played any Armageddon so far. Now, white's edge is kind of maintaining into the endgame here. Black is in more serious time pressure, although it's objectively pretty small. Black's structure is maybe worse. White's king is more active. They're very close to attacking some targets. I don't know about this rook c2, rook d2 to save time. That's kind of like purely a blitz idea. It's usually not good in normal chess. Like, black's king is getting kind of close to doing something useful. Ooh, I don't know about all this. I thought king e4, but now this is a check, and it's a lost pawn. Like, what is this? Yeah, king e4 on the menu. I think white has a decisive advantage at this point. Even with just 1 minute to convert, it should be possible. Yeah, g5 is very pragmatic. Even if it's an extra pawn, you just want to maintain a good structure and play the king and pawn endgame. Yeah, this is a trivial win now. He'll probably pre-move the next like 4 moves and make a queen. Yeah. It's almost checkmate time. Since there are pawns on the board, there'll be no stalemate whatsoever. There we go. And black's resigned. There were a couple of moments where white could probably have converted much more easily in this game. But anyway, they're into round 2. This is our second and final 10-minute. It's going to go to 5 and 5. I mean, 2 5-minute games after this. Now here we have an actual Scandinavian defense. The last game sort of had a familial resemblance, but this is the tried and true queen d5, queen a5 old main line of the Scandinavian. Bishop c4 I think is an accurate move order, although it doesn't necessarily matter that much. It's just a exploitative move order. There are some options for black which are definitely bad after bishop c4. There's some mention of dirty flagging in the chat. I feel like dirty flagging is such a sad aspect of online chess. In real life, people will almost never be able to flag you, and you can play a proper game and analyze it, but the kind of clicky, twitchy reflex aspect of chess is really highlighted in the online games where you can just kind of like pre-move for 10 days and just let all the moves fly, and they don't have to be good moves, and your opponent will probably run out of time. I think the speed aspect is probably the least aesthetic aspect of chess overall, but that's just my opinion. Here, I think black is playing into an inferior line of Scandinavian defense. I think it would have been much better to just put the bishop on f5. Although I know bishop g4 to h5 has been recommended in some kind of beginner books. It's actually horrible. It's almost losing for black. Yeah, I think white is taking the challenge the right way. He's just bishop d2. The threat was knight d5 and knight f6, ruining black's structure, activating white's bishops. But the thing that white is not really doing here is kicking the bishop one more time. I think he just wants to castle and then decide later what to do. That's just my guess. Alright, so Vedanta is predicting 2.5, 1.5 for Anandh. Sorry, I'm a little bit behind. And it looks like Neil agrees. So people are optimistic after the first game for Anandh. But we'll see. I mean, Anand's position is objectively worse here. He's up on time, that was also my experience playing Scandinavian defense for a long time. That I always had like an extra hour on the clock playing it. But you know, this 1 minute advantage could easily evaporate over the course of a 10-minute game. So it's not much to talk about. I'm more concerned about this bishop's sort of poor placement. Thanks for visiting, Neil, even though you have to go pretty soon. Is it tactics time already because black is not castling? Oh, I was thinking something slightly different here. I was thinking about something relating to like d5 and g5. These two pawn moves would just rain down on the black position, and because black's king's in the center, I think this would have been really strong. Knight e5 is generally just like a common sense move. I feel like the players are not really calculating any tactics. In the last game, Anand missed just winning a free piece essentially out of the opening. Like in almost the first middle game position, he had a great chance to just snag a free bishop on c5. And here, I think white had this big chance with g5 and d5. It's like really huge to play this kind of attacking chess. But now knight e5. Positionally, it's good. We might still be seeing some fireworks now, because the structure's changing. I think there's some cheap shots, like bishop a4. I think he missed bishop a4. That would have been pretty strong. You know, just take away the castling right away. Maybe black noticed it, because they're really lingering here. Makes me wonder if they noticed. No, I think bishop a4 is still on the menu. So maybe either he's resigned to his fate of allowing bishop a4, or he didn't notice it whatsoever. I thought he might play a6. Okay, this doesn't spoil anything for white. It just says how good his position is. You know, he's threatening to trap the bishop. It takes a couple moves. It'd be like this. Bishop's trapped. He would get some counterplay from like bishop f3, queen e5 check. But here, like, I don't know why. Maybe white doesn't want black to lose castling rights. They want them to castle into an attack. But I think taking away their castling rights is just universally pretty good. It would at least make them very uncomfortable. And it seems that in modern chess, making your opponent uncomfortable is even more important than playing the 100% best move. Because truth is, we can't know 100% what the best move is in most positions. The situations where it's super clear what the best move is are relatively rare. So many people have kind of resigned to... They don't really want to find out what the best move is anymore that much, at least during the game. They want to in the postmortem for their training purposes, but during the game they're concerned with what kinds of positions are easy to play. And Carlsen's kind of been showing that on a regular basis, that every position's easy for him to play and hard for his opponent, and that's why he's world champion. G5 was a very committal decision. I can kind of see where he's coming from. Maybe he doesn't want to have a weak h-pawn, but it also means this bishop has a home, and before this bishop was a little bit outcast. Alright, finally bishop a4, ruining castling. We might be able to see some checkmating threats finally. Bishop e4 is not much Vedant. Bishop e4, they'll just play f3. I don't think there's any kind of cool combo after that. For example, like pawn takes e4, queen g3 check, king d1. It's just like they're doing fine. The time situation is mostly leveled out, but I think White's position is just getting better and better. Actually, I'm just noticing for the first time that because of rook c1, White's castling might be suspect. So maybe things are not as rosy as they look, and it could still turn. I mean, White's position is not bad by any stretch, but I think that if they play a few lackluster moves in a row, Black is going to activate their worst place piece and give White a hard time, practically speaking, even if they are worse. There's also this small pressure on f2. It's not really a big deal because I don't see how White is going to ever accidentally hang the f2 pawn. But, you know, if the queen gets busy, it could happen. So we might even see, like, kingside castling. Maybe it looks strange on an intuitive level because you think, okay, these pawns are so far away, the king is exposed. But if the black pieces can't get in, then it doesn't really matter if the king is exposed. So it would become kind of a dynamic game where, like, maybe White's king is castled and they can finally use their rook, and so all their pieces stay active, so Black can't activate. But on the other hand, if they castle, maybe it's a chance for Black to play f6. Of course, if they play f6 or some similar aggressive macho chess with their king in the middle of the board, then there's no guarantee of success. So we might also be seeing some kind of long king maneuver to get to a more safe place like a8. Truth is, looks like nowhere on the board is safe for either player. This is probably going to be a decisive game. So right now it's 1 point in Anand's favor. It's 1-0. This one is not necessarily in White's favor, just because it's a back and forth game. Time's going down. All right, so White did decide on castling. He played bishop f4 first, maybe hinting that he was somewhat anxious about tactical ideas. The reason I say it like that is because I don't think the bishop stands well here. I think it mostly has a defensive role, guarding e5, being able to go to g3, that kind of thing. So Black is just making a wholesale advance. Everything must go on the queen side. And this is preventing a4, which at some point might have been a useful blockading move. This bishop on g6 is out of play, but I think it might have a future because of this g5 advance. So it's hard to make predictions, but things stay spicy. Okay, so White doesn't like that bishop after all. Things might actually be turning for Black now, because this bishop was actually kind of an asset for White. And if they give it up for this bishop who was kind of a dumpster fire on g6, like, what does White even have to play for? It's like he's just making moves. Will it be queen or rook? That's an interesting question. I have a feeling it'll be rook. Queen also has its merits, but I'm just predicting based on what I think the players are thinking. Alright, it was rook. And I think that was saying he wants to attack h5, and so Black played g6 quick as you like to shore up the king side completely. And now he'll probably switch his attention to the queen side, where things are still fluid. These pawns are not fixed whatsoever. This bishop's looking like a pawn now, so this is why I think Black maybe has some edge. I think White's short-term plan is to play like king h2 and f4. I don't think it's necessarily a good plan, but that's kind of the impression that I'm getting from bishop g3. He might also simply be trying to free this rook. Like, I know this f2 is protected like a million times, but you know, you can always protect it a little bit more so the heavy pieces can do their lifting. Queen f3. Okay, so you wanted queen f6. What's going on here? I think there's some tactics going on now, like on the queen side. Just maybe. See, this rook is not protected anymore because of king e8. That might be a useful resource. Sorry guys, I'm trying to like fix my stream on my phone. There we go. Okay, so black has managed to activate their rook. I feel like white is just aimlessly moving the rooks around. These last couple moves, it was like, so he doubled the rooks, but like he's not threatening c4. I thought the move that he would play here was b4. The idea is like takes, bishop takes, rook takes. But the shuffling continues, right? And now black has something to play for because his c pawn is getting weak after b3. Yeah, I think rook c7 is very sensible. If I had to declare an idea, I would probably say that they want to move the bishop somewhere, play either king e7 or king d7, probably king e7, and then double the rooks to pressure c3, a weakness. So lots of shuffling. Every day they're shuffling. Queen b7. Okay, I like can't even guess what these guys are up to. Maybe he's preparing to tuck the bishop away. That's a pretty decent idea, if true. But it doesn't really solve the... Well, I guess it's just a longer way of solving the problem of f7 hanging. Lucky thing for black, f7 is their weakest point, but they... Actually, this is a really complicated situation. This is a pawn sacrifice. Hold on. Chop, 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 chop. Check. It's not a sacrifice, but it's pretty close. The reason it's not a sacrifice is if they take, the queen is hanging in between. So the queen takes, rook takes, and then they can finally take back on c4. So that's probably why we're seeing black pausing here for a moment, just weighing the consequences. So he wants queens off. Maybe he's encouraged by the fact that nothing can attack f7 now, and he had some previous success in the end game last round. It's still hard to get this guy in. The rook on f8 is pretty much useless. King d8, not what I was thinking. I think white's next move is pretty obvious. Let's see though, because the players always surprise me. Yeah, rook d2, just check the king back, right? The idea is that if we trade this one rook, the king will get out, and so the rook on f8 will become active. But in this case, when we just avoid, the pieces remain very poorly coordinated for black, while white's pieces are starting to do something. Bishop d8 looks like it was pre-moved. That's pretty odd. Odd decision to make very quickly. It would be interesting to see these two players go to an Armageddon, because they're playing like really fast and furious chess sometimes. I'm not so fast, I'm mostly just furious. Black is just struggling to develop a piece here. I think there is a plan, but maybe he's making crop circles with the king to stall for time and see if he can come up with something. Well, that was very committal. Exchanging one pair of pieces allows black to finally develop the final piece, and the pawn on d6 could actually turn out to be a target more than an asset. I think black has to play a precise move here, and at that point they're maybe equalizing. Let's see if they choose the precise move. That was not my choice, because now after rook b7, I think that the activity of the rook on b7 will be pretty solid. For instance, like, what if they just play, well, we'll see. The time's low. They'll probably choose something interesting. Rook b2, not what I was thinking. I was thinking rook c7. Was it a trap? It was a trap. Black should probably not have snapped on the pawn on d6. Like, activating this rook on f8 was just the theme so far. The reason this is a trap is that if they go to d7 or d5, it's the same answer. A pin or a skewer on the bishop and the king. So he has to lose it. He could actually still hold this position if he can get rid of all the pawns, but there's so many pawns, so I think it's a major challenge. The reason that I think having all the pawns off is his best bet is just that it's something of a challenge to beat rook with rook and bishop. Oops. So if those were the only pieces left on, it would probably be not so easy. I think he missed a good chance here with rook d6, just forcing the rook off. He's hungry for pawns. Oof, that was a bad pre-move. Allowing a4 it's not very good, practically speaking. Oof, that rook is trapped after a7. I love it when the rook is trapped in this way. This prison forever. Yep, rook e7, that's lights out. Probably we're gonna see the king just coming in. Nope, he's greedy, he wants pawns. Is he gonna stalemate? This is like a little too much. Stalemate, oh my god, crazy. Somehow I just knew that he would stalemate this one. He started playing way too fast. I mean, not that he was playing too fast, but that he was not doing the right one. Okay, we're going to go to the 5-minute portion, so I think the players need to communicate about that. Alright, let's message the players on Discord. Let's see what they do. Yeah, so in a position like this, if you're trying to play fast, first off, you should just cut the king. Like, in this position, the king's already cut, so all you should do is bring your king in, like, just wherever, and if they attack your rook, just move the rook far away. It'll become mate very, very easily with no risk of stalemate. Alright, the players are in for a 5-minute. Anandh has black, once again, against Saketh. When they rematch, the colors will alternate, so that'll be fine. Alright, now we have a Sicilian, different opening, and it's an Alapin Sicilian. I think that playing d4 so rapidly is... Maybe I just don't know the lines, but I think that it was not necessarily good. I'm a little suspicious about this early d5 as well. Yeah, first of all, there are many lines where black just puts a knight on e5 and they accept kind of a worse structure. Well, this one's kind of different because usually when you put a knight on e5 and you allow pawn d5, it's because you have doubled pawns and you can like you can attack and trade off one of the pawns. But here, the pawn on d5 is like a permanent fixture. Yeah, well, yeah, that was definitely a huge mischance. Both players have been missing a lot of stuff. The post-mortem is going to be very interesting. We might see a lot of like forehead slapping from the players. Missing free pieces, missing checkmate. Yeah, throwing the pawns down, maybe it feels right because it's easy to click a pawn and move it, but usually when you're trying to win the game, you should just go for mate. Yep. You can improve your king just as easily as you can push a pawn. Usually I only push a pawn if it's like way to the outside, and I'm going to promote with checkmate if I have like 10 seconds left. Okay, what's going on here? h4. He's just trying to bully this knight back to e5. I don't know if that's necessarily good. In particular, I think h5 is not playable on the next move. So black played h5 themselves, but if they just play like bishop e7, h5, they could play bishop g4. I think that would be pretty reasonable. It'd be like queen a5 check, bishop d7, move the knight back to e5. No big deal. Black's playing kind of very passively here. I'm concerned that it's going to be a blowout this game. And right now, Anandh is ahead by just a full point. So if he gets destroyed with black, he would have to win the second 5-minute game just to survive. Well, actually, he would win the match if he wins. If he draws the second 5-minute game, like let's say he loses this game, just because I don't like his position, he'd have to win the next game to win the match. If he gets a draw, then it will go to Armageddon. Of course, if he does better in this game, he'll have much more flexibility going into the final round. However, I think his position is sort of in shambles. It's a very hard position to play, in my opinion. Probably Anandh is considering snagging a free pawn, but rook h6, what is that? He just doesn't want to move the knight, and he doesn't want to get doubled pawns. I guess I can see that, but it also looks very odd to place your rook this way as a pure defending piece. The bishop goes back to e2. What? Like, I thought maintaining this pressure made some sense. There was also this moment, maybe he realized the d pawn was hanging and it wasn't part of his plan. I thought that he was planning like knight d5, queen d5, bishop g6, queen d1, bishop f7 check, king f7, and rook d1, something like that. But no, we have this instead. Some shenanigans on the board. Knight g5 is very strong. The bishop is attacking h5, the knight's attacking f7. The board's generally clearing up. Is knight h7 okay? I feel like that's not kosher. Why would he trade like that? Hold on. What is going on here? I thought knight e4 was way stronger, attacking the weak d6 pawn. This pawn's going to be a weakness for the whole game. That's why I don't like his position that much. I think it's going to be impossible to alleviate the pressure. How many times is his rook going to go on h6? What's going on here? I think knight e4 is still a very strong move. What's that? Rook e1. Knight e4 is still strong. Okay, so he's trying to get the rook on a1 in. Makes sense. What's that knight doing there? I thought rook e7 was strong in that position. Like rook e7 and maybe he'd play knight f3 to try to sabotage. But if rook e7, bishop h4, it was probably lights out. Just the two minor pieces for one rook would be very strong in this position, especially since it would be a bishop pair. Oof, what was that? Checkmate. It was a blowout. I called it. That was such a rapid turn of events. Can't believe it. He played one bad move and it was over. And that's probably just because his position was very hard to play. He had too many weaknesses. Alright, so Anandh has white. He's back in the hot seat. And it's tied up. So if Anandh wins the game, he wins the match. If it's a draw, they go to Armageddon, our first Armageddon of the fan battle series. And if anyone's new and wants to play a fan battle, just join our Discord. Like, shoot me a message on Lichess. My handle is MasterMater, so you guys can message me on there. I'll hook you up. You can join our Discord, and we can find someone in your rating range to play a commentated match with. Okay, Saketh is maybe hyperventilating somewhere. He hasn't made his move quite yet. He's probably breathing into a brown paper bag after the excitement. Maybe he's like doing a lap of his house. Not sure. Brilliant Actor 22 official. Do you just like burn your accounts every week, dude? I feel like you always have a new username and you always blame it on your Chromebook, like why you lost your password. Alright, so here's another Scandinavian defense. Scandinavian defense has been out of fashion for a long time now. It lost a lot of its popularity in the early part of the 20th century, and it had a brief, should I say reprisal? Reprieve is what I mean. So it had a brief reprieve in like the time when I started learning chess in the late 2000s, but it was pretty brief. I think it's been kind of put away as a bad opening again. John Bartholomew has put out some books about Scandinavian, but it's mostly just hype. He has this hashtag Team Scandi, but I don't think his analysis is necessarily, maybe should I say top flight worthy. If you're trying to compete against titled players, Scandinavian is probably not the choice in standard time controls. But we're here, not GMs, and we're playing a 5-minute game, so anything goes. Black is doing the right thing. In one game, we saw the knight on c6. It was not through a Scandinavian move order, but usually you want to play this exact maneuver that I mentioned. You want to bring the queen back to avoid discover attacks with the knight. Not sure about a4. The setups with d3 are very unambitious, but they also get you a sort of long game where, you know, black, they might try to do something active and run into trouble. But usually it's not white who's pressing in these d3 lines. Usually, I guess they're hoping for black to give up the bishop pair and then grind. h3 was probably sensible. We want to be able to move the knight, and the pawn was hanging. There might have been tactical ways to deal with it, but not necessary. And here we're seeing potentially the annihilation of the bishop pair. Yep, it's over. This pawn structure is not that bad, even if you castle. Like, usually people will accept this pawn structure only when the rook is on h8, but it's fine when you castle as well. It's very solid. It's like a bucket. Solid bucket. Dinesh, the score is 1.5 to 1.5. So it's down to the wire on this one game. So it looks like white's going for all the bishops. He wants to take on d6. Oof. I once tried this very slow plan in one of my tournament games, and I got destroyed. I forgot what tournament it was, though. It was, like, many years ago. But it's just too slow. Like, there's no targets here. I think that black is going to suffer to make something happen on the h-file. So we might even see another draw. If we get another draw, it's going to go to Armageddon for the first time. 95 looks like a very good move for black. I don't think there's enough to sack and exchange. It does jump to my mind to play rook e5 because I don't want to lose the bishop pair. But I think that he just has to bite the bullet and let this happen. I was thinking something more like queen f4, but it's fine. Now, the pawn on c4 might actually be useful, because generally the knight's good home is d5. So here it's not going to ever reach that good square. Bishop c3 is eyeing the whole king side, where, should I say black is artificially uncastled, because they were castled and then they like moved all the pieces around to this awkward position again. Yeah, I was gonna say bringing the rook in makes a lot of sense. We'll probably see a lift like to d2 or d3 and then put the other rook. I think queen e7 is sort of anticipating that, though. Like, from the moment that white plays a move like rook d3, we'd probably see rook d8, try to neutralize one pair of rooks. What is queen f3 up to? I think maybe he's anticipating rook d8 and he wants to just swap the rooks and put this rook on d1. Let's see. This is a moment of truth for that. Is he going to take? Is he going to do a lift? Does he even lift? We don't know. Let's see. b4. That's like maybe too ambitious. I kind of liked white's structure before because it was untouchable. But b4, it blocks the bishop. I was hoping to get some bishop b4. See, my arrows are bad today. I was hoping to get some bishop b4 idea in sometime, but now it's not going to happen without further committal advances. Alright, so he finally went for that plan where he trades and plays rook d1. Makes sense. I don't know why he's trading this bishop. I thought that this was not really much. Like, queen takes b4 is in the air. Am I missing something? Queen b4, queen d8, king g7. I think black's solid. Black's probably even winning. I think knight g4 is not good at any time. I think... Because, like, they don't have to take it. I don't think knight g4 was ever an idea. So, sorry about the late comment, but we can talk about it in the post-mortem as well. Just remind me if you want to be more specific about where. Here he's going after f7, I guess. And he's getting it. I mean, queen f8 is probably forced now, so this is very back and forth. Queen e1 maybe is forced as well. Well, not forced, but I think queen f8 was necessary. But if you want counterplay, this is the way to go. Just, I don't see... Oh, maybe queen e5, just to trade the queens off by force. But then here we have this awkward rook endgame. Like, rook b7, rook e2 is probably on tap to try to win back some pawns. King f8, that's like the wrong way. The players are acting on pure instinct at this point, it looks like. We might get something that looks something like a Ventura position, if I just had to guess. That maybe at some point white will play like rook a pawn a7 and then go for a rook sack to promote, but the time's not right yet because this rook is behind the pawn. It can just keep an eye. It's like the perfect defensive posture. It's unclear how black will improve the king. Is it a draw? Are we going to Armageddon? Okay, f3, he's refusing. But still, where's the progress? Could it be free? Can he get away with it? The pawn's not on a7 yet, so there's some small chance. Okay, so it's on a7. Rook b8 is coming up. I think he blundered it away. Oof, as they say. Big oof. He has no shot. This pawn is not anywhere near fast enough, but maybe white will blunder it. You know, Saketh, he played super overambitious, fast, sloppy chess at the end of his winning position the other game. He might just do the same thing again right here. His king's no longer in the square. but black's king is cut off, so there's some hope. But he's just moving the rook. What is that? He's gonna have to give the rook, but he can probably still win the king and pawn endgame. Yeah. Is there enough time? Alright, so I think black realized that he's dead lost here, and he just has to bite the bullet. But stalemate is possible. Always possible. What is that? Oh, it's a stalemate thing. He's just trying to mess around in the time pressure. Go for stalemate. Saketh blew up such a good position just moments ago. So it's totally understandable that he should play this out. Alright. So Anandh wins the match with 2.5 against 1.5. So now we're going to go to a post-mortem. We're going to get the players in a voice channel and see their thoughts. So I'm just messaging the players. All right. Hey, Anandh, Saketh, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, it's so loud. I'm going to turn it down a little bit. Cool. Let's just check with, hey, Anandh, you can hear us, right?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, great. So, nice match, guys. That was it with the last game, right? I think it was 2.5.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, let's start with the first game. I know there's a little bit of lag on stream, but I'm just going to put up the first game, and we will go from there. So, in this first one, Anandh had white, and you guys reached this position with knight f6. Can you guys see it on my stream?
Oh wait, I'm not on your stream.
Yeah, just check it out so you can make sure you're on the same position as I am. Because
Okay.
I just want the viewers to be able to see. Sorry, say again.
What's the moon number?
Just 3. I'm going from the opening. So knight f6 on move 3. Here, Anandh, you chose knight c3, and I had some interesting comments about this. I think before the match you said your match strategy was just develop your pieces and play chess, right? Because you wanted to play some new openings, but you weren't so sure about it, right?
Yeah, I think Eatmaster plays this.
Yeah, he does. Were you
I'm expecting Anand to go
knight g5?
English. Yeah, English and then or Queens
Oh, you mean like on move 1 you're expecting like c4 or
D4.
d4? Why is that? Just because you saw his games, or?
Yeah, mainly he just at least goes for like C4 or D4.
Yeah, Anand, was e4 kind of something new for you in this match?
No, I know that he exclusively plays E4, but I didn't want to prepare anything.
Mm-hmm.
I just
Yeah,
went-
right.
So in this position, I thought you might go for knight g5. Did you consider this, Anand?
Yeah, but there's a lot of traps in this line, so
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with it. I didn't
Wait
want
1
to go
second.
there.
No problem, Saketh. Yeah, for both sides, knight g5 is very tricky. I think it's kind of good in blitz, but it's maybe not so good in standard chess. I played this in
I know the theory, I guess.
yeah, I played this in tournaments for like 10 years, and I recently stopped. I just think it's too difficult in 2020 to play like this. So I think knight c3 is good, but I think d3 is a little better because what happened in the game with knight c3 is black is easily equalizing with d5. You know, this center fork sacrifice is very effective. So probably if you want to play for some edge, you have to play d3 instead on move 4.
We actually played a game 2 days ago, and I fell into the same trap.
Yeah, you should check this one out. I also think the best move here is bishop d3.
Yeah, Bishop D3.
Yes,
So,
so-
yeah, I think I just misplayed it.
Yeah, Saketh, I taught you this, right?
Yeah.
I always tell people about this, and they never listen to me. So join the club, everyone. So anyway, bishop d5 is not terrible. You know, you lose the bishop pair, but if black plays somewhat imprecisely, you can equalize again. But Queen a5, I think, is not the right placement.
Yeah, I think queen d3 was better. I mean, queen d6 was better.
Even queen d6 is suspect, because when you play queen d6, at some point they'll get knight b5 or knight e4. I think you should just go back to d8. And I know this feels weird, because you're like, I brought my queen out, I should do something with it.
Yeah.
But it's safe on d8, and next you can just play bishop d6 and castle, and it's just a bishop pair game. Were,
Yeah.
were you thinking about bishop pair at all, like during the game?
Not really.
I thought you were, because it seemed like you consistently gravitated towards having bishops against knights through the match. But of course, every piece has its day. At this point, with bishop d2 on move 9, I mentioned that this is a lot like a Scandinavian position gone wrong, because the queen is on a5, like in Scandinavian, right? But with the knight on c6, you don't have the maneuver pawn c6 and queen c7 that's sort of essential for black. So I thought this was maybe a very double-edged position, because you can't get your queen safe as black, but you do have the bishop pair, which is more unusual in Scandinavian type positions. So this position, I don't know how to evaluate it exactly, but I kind of liked white. I thought it was maybe more important to have your queen safe than to have the bishop pair at this point. So with queen c5, I guess you're just dodging the threat. Not bad. a6. So Saketh, why did you play a6? What's the idea with this?
Oh, I just wanted to prevent knight b5.
Oh, but it's not really a threat, right?
Not really, but I just wanted to keep it safe. Yeah.
I think sometimes you're playing too passively, and this is giving your opponent extra opportunities. After a6, I had this interesting idea to play d4. Anand, did you check this out?
I was considering d4, but I thought he just takes back.
Yeah,
That's why I was
I
trying to prepare
thought if
d4.
b4, then knight takes, and then knight takes, and then queen takes. I didn't really see anything.
castle long. Do you see it now?
Like, can you put it on the board?
Yeah, I did. It's just a little slow.
Okay.
So after queen takes d4, if white just castles long, I think the position is very dangerous for black. Because, yeah, they have one pawn, but the bishops are not out. The structure is all on dark squares. The rooks are not playing. The queen's under attack from the rook. Can you see it on the board now?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. It does look a little bit dangerous. Like, not a little bit, but a lot.
Yeah, it's more than a little bit dangerous, but it's still a contest, of course. But now knight d5 is like a real thing. You know, we're gonna move the bishop and play knight d5, or we could even just play f4 and see what you do, that kind of thing. It's very hard for black to make a good move. Like, just for sake of argument.
What about, let's say, bishop e7? I don't think
Yeah.
there are like any good discoveries. I don't know.
I could play bishop h6 because you played like that, right?
Oh yeah, true.
Not that I want to go pawn grabbing. Even if I just play f4 in this position, I think it's pretty reasonable. But, you know, bishop h6 is so tempting. I think it makes a lot of sense to do it. Yeah, like, where do you even put your queen? b4, I guess? It's like the only square. I guess you could play h4, but... See, it's tough. It's tough already. So I think d4 is a very justified pawn sacrifice. So, Anand, this would have been really good for you. I think so, anyway.
Yeah,
I considered d4, but I didn't consider castling.
Oh, okay. So you didn't look a little further? Yeah. So d4 probably came up for you just because it's a forcing move, right? It's not because you want to open the center.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is the...
Aligned with.
Yeah, I was afraid e-file was going to open up, so, and I thought d4 would do it, but I don't, after like one move I didn't really consider.
Yeah, I guess you guys were both pretty confident that black would hold during the game. You just didn't notice rook d1 is super strong. Or castling, whichever. So short castling, still not bad. But now black is, you know, finally getting something together. It was just a little too much preparation. And so I'll skip ahead a little bit here, just so we can see all the games more easily. After d4, I think black is pretty much equalized, because with all these pieces getting traded, it doesn't matter so much if there's a development problem. In fact, after after queen d4, it's probably not good, right? I'm not sure about this all of a sudden. What do you guys think about queen takes d4 on move 16?
1 second, let me look at it.
Yeah, sure.
That's what I wanted.
So what were you intending for this, Anand?
It just looked cool. He takes my bishop, I take his bishop.
Uh-huh.
No, I didn't want it with checks though, and I just wanted.
But check is just check, right? Like, what's the matter with it? I'll just play king b8 here.
I
But
mean, I don't think it really matters.
but then there's rook d1. That's what I was wondering if you guys were anticipating this.
I just want to keep the bishop on f7, so it's like more defensive, I guess.
Yeah, you're
Like,
playing.
guard-
You're more comfortable just waiting for your opponent to do something, right? It seems that
Yeah.
way. So, but I think that maybe. Hold on, let's just quickly check and see if queen d7 is worth. I think here, if queen takes d7, king takes d7 is kind of good. My idea is that if you give a check to the king, you play bishop d6. I think black is equalizing. What do you guys think?
Wait, where?
I'm worried about my pawns. B2 pawn.
Oh, okay.
Your b2 pawn?
Yeah, after everything's exchanged, can his queen go and grab it?
Oh, hold on. Are we in the same line? Because I was looking at queen takes d4 still. Like queen takes d4, queen e6,
Okay.
and then instead of king b8, which is losing, playing queen to d7, and then I guess queen takes d7, king takes d7 looks logical because you can play rook a d1 with check, and it's initiative. But after bishop d6, I think it's kind of like white doesn't have anything else. I think everybody's off the board, and if white trades knight for bishop, that's kind of equalizing. If black can trade a pair of rooks, that's kind of equalizing. I don't think there's that much play left in the position. So probably this was...
Yeah, basically a position.
Yeah, so maybe queen d4, like it looks bad, but it might be good for a draw. Although this is not like a super in-depth analysis. Anyway, so you pick bishop f7. And the reason I was thinking so strongly about queen d4 is that after, for example, like rook a d1 on move 17, I was not that confident that you were doing okay with your bishop on f7. Like, yeah, you still have the bishop pair, but it's a lot of danger. You can't play bishop e7. Playing bishop g6 is just like you're just playing around. The bishop on f4 is threatening something. We don't know exactly what on d4. We don't know what bishop d4 is doing quite yet, but something's going on here, right? Maybe knight e4 is coming up. I just feel like you're almost in Zugzwang. It's tough to play. Even making your king safer with king b8, it's not possible. Bishop a7 check, and the queen comes off. So I was just not so sure about that for you guys. Do you guys have any thoughts about this position? I know that in the game we saw bishop e3 instead of rook a d1, but maybe Anand, you thought about rook d1 instead?
No, I don't remember
Oh, okay.
thinking about it.
Yeah, I think this would have been a very strong option. So against bishop f7, I think black's just slightly worse. And b2 is not really a big problem. Like earlier you were saying you were maybe concerned about b2. After queen b4, you kind of just... after queen f3, you're kind of letting it go anyway, right? But I think you maybe had some tactical ideas. So on move 18, let's say they play queen takes b2. What were you planning on it?
Yeah, I had something. I think I was thinking
Wait,
rook
where?
b1.
Oh no. Wait, which is move again?
So right now we're on... Let me just think of how to explain because we started the line. So on move 18, yeah, he did queen f3, but I'm saying instead of bishop c5, if you play queen b2, what would he do? And I think he said rook a b1, right? So I guess queen c3, you must have some tactics, right? Were you thinking queen h3 check?
Yeah, I thought I was checkmating him there
This is a nice idea.
with my other rook coming in.
I don't think it was check.
You lose the queen though.
Close to checkmate.
Bishop a7 check wins the queen,
Wait 1 second.
so it may as well be mate.
The queen takes c3 and then
Yeah, queen c3, queen h3 check, king b8, and then bishop a7 check. So you have no option. You have to just take it, and then the queen on c3 is hanging because the queen's on.
oh yeah.
Yeah, queen g4 is not precise.
What about rook b7?
Instead of that, Oh, okay.
Yeah, within the
But then
pawn.
maybe we just put more pressure, like rook e
Yeah, I think.
d1. I think that's good.
It just looked very dangerous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the whole thing's dangerous. Maybe but maybe you're holding. Hold on. So rook d7. Well, we could at least play rook to d1. I guess queen c6 is logical. And I think here you can play rook takes b7. Did you guys notice that? Maybe not. Bishop e6 is coming up. Oh, but bishop e6 we could
Yeah, I think
play.
rook d7 blocked everything basically.
Yeah, I think rook d7 might be good. That's true. So maybe it's not so bad, and you shouldn't give up the knight on c3. However, I think you have other options here. Just because you can't give up the knight on c3 doesn't mean you shouldn't give up the b pawn. Maybe you could play knight a4 and just go for like total counterplay. Or
Yeah, I didn't want to like counter b2 because it might have been a like poison pawn.
yeah,
I didn't want to like waste time
just calculating and just to make
yeah.
a blunder. Yeah, I get that. But if your position's worse, it makes sense. Maybe you're not worse enough that it's justified. So we can move on. Bishop c5 was a one move blunder though. Did you guys notice that it's a free piece?
Yeah, it was a free piece. I actually noticed after the move.
Yeah, I imagine you probably screaming in your house after you played bishop c5. But maybe screaming even more when he didn't play queen f5.
What move was this? I don't
Uh,
remember.
Yeah, on move 19,
Yeah,
after bishop c5, you can just play queen f5 check and win the bishop.
yeah, that was a long. That was kind of lucky, but
Yeah, that was a lucky break. Yeah, you could have decided much earlier in this first game on it.
Oh, I didn't see it.
Yeah, just a one move thing.
yeah, or just queen. Yeah, you can just take the bishop with the queen or bishop.
Yeah, so this, I kind of got the feeling, Anand, that you're playing for, like, you want a slightly more active endgame. You weren't really thinking tactics at this point.
Yeah, I'm not
I
had a good.
noticed that. Yeah, I noticed that he was very bad under time pressure.
Yeah,
So,
I'm not really good at time.
Yeah.
I
so
generally
you,
play like
you found it right.
I'm more of a classical player, to be honest.
Yeah.
So yeah.
These days we have to be a universal player, though. It's like chess is just changing, and we have to be with the times. H3, I guess it makes sense. You don't want to get back rank mated. The rest of this game was kind of like time pressure sloppiness, but there was one point that I thought was interesting. So on move 25, Saketh, you snatched the pawn on c2.
On C2, yeah.
Yeah, maybe you shouldn't have done that. Things kind of went south at that point, right?
I think actually I think F6 I mean C6 was in the correct move. I think bishop F5 might have been better.
Oh,
Because
let's check. Yeah, so rook
because like
c1.
bishop F5, queen takes C7, queen takes C7, rook takes C7, and then rook E5 I think wins something.
Okay, but they have maybe other options, right?
Yeah, they probably have other options, but
You might be right though, because queen c7 just avoids
yeah,
losing the queen.
I think they just might move their queen instead of capturing the pawn.
Yeah, but where do they move it? Because the knight is hanging. That's kind of a question. Maybe queen f7,
Yeah, queen F7 looks like
but
queen
but
E7.
bishop e6, and then queen e8. So I think it might be only queen f7. Is it good? Do you guys notice any problems with queen f7?
You win
Bishop
a pawn,
G6.
right? Black wins a pawn.
Bishop G6 I think might win the knight, but I'm not sure. Bishop G6 and then
I'm not that confident that they win a pawn actually. So let's say we play queen f7. If you play bishop g6, I think it's a repetition maybe.
yeah, but I guess so.
So it could like just be a draw. But if you try to go all in and do something different, like let's see. So c7 is still under
Maybe
fire, right?
F6, I'm not sure. Maybe C6 then?
Yeah, maybe c6 now. But
Because I don't
it's still a chaotic position. I don't think it's easy to say like up a
yeah,
pawn.
it's still kind of chaotic, yeah.
I think the knight on b6 is a formidable force. It looks pretty
I
big.
think it equalizes, but I'm not sure. No, it probably doesn't
Yeah.
equalize, but yeah.
White was pressing all along, but see, g7 is also hanging. So like if you don't do something active right now, then I don't know what's gonna happen. You can't play queen b2 because your rook's hanging. So logically we might try like rook e7, try to solve all the problems. But after rook e7, I think you're losing an exchange or something. Like there's queen f8, king a7 runs into knight c8, and you're doomed. So king c7 is necessary, and here knight a8 looks like it might win the game. The idea is king d6 is maybe the only move, and rook d1 check. You have to play either king c5 or king e6. I just have this feeling like white is up to something here. After king.
But the bishop's guarding, so I don't think it's
Guarding what?
Oh.
Like here, just black's king is out in the open.
I don't think there's any real threats.
Oh, okay. I mean, you'd have to analyze this pretty thoroughly. What was the time situation at this point? I don't remember. Let me just check. Yeah, you both had
Look under the board. No, I think
not in a side variation. So, at the moment that we started analyzing this line where you played c6,
like-
you had almost 2 minutes.
I had like 1 minute of, I had about 1 minute 20 seconds, and Anand had about 2 minutes and 15 seconds.
Yeah. So to reach this position, it's just chaotic. I think we wouldn't be able to make a thorough analysis of all this.
Black would survive with 1 minute.
I don't really think so either. Like I'm not sure bishop f5 is holding. It's not obvious looking at it.
Especially with 1 minute.
Yeah, it's very tough to play. But maybe it's better than what you did, because after c6,
Definitely better. I think it's better, but yeah.
but what about knight b6 here? Like your bishop's still hanging, right? And the rook is still kind of hanging. And the knight is on b6. The knight looks pretty good on b6. I just wanted to preserve the knight because knight and queen is usually a superior attacking force than, I mean, compared to queen and bishop. So, for example, let's say you play, maybe let's say you kind of skip your turn, right? You play bishop g6, and you're just trying to hold on. Queen takes g7 is powerful. It's threatening knight d7. Actually, no, it was queen b2. See, it's just so complicated all of a sudden. But I think that trading the knight for the bishop was more in black's favor than white's favor. So even though it was complicated, I think it was better for white to try to preserve the knight and make some kind of attack happen. Like maybe knight e3 is a simple way to play this position. You keep the knight, possible like knight c4, knight d6, but without so much chaos. You know, bishop f5 isn't possible. Queen b2 is not possible. Probably after knight e3, you can just, after bishop g6, you can calmly play like rook d1 or maybe knight c4 immediately. Just, I think there are lots of possibilities here for an immediate win. And this time scramble with the queens coming off was a lot more chaotic than it had to be.
Yeah.
Saketh, I think you pre-moved rook e1. Is that true?
Wait, where?
On move 29, did you pre-move rook e1?
It was almost pre-moved.
Yeah, I think here you should play queen g3. Because it'll ruin white's pawn structure a little bit. But what you did instead was you forced white to activate the king. I think this was your undoing. That's why you lost this game pretty much. Okay, so I don't think there's much else to say here. It was kind of just like a time scramble and
Yeah. The
Gen-
time struggles really got me like all
Yeah.
sequence.
generally white was better in this one. So let's look at the next game. I'm just navigating. 1 second. Alright, so the first one was that. Okay, this one was stalemate. Stalemate game.
Yeah, I only had like 6 seconds and I couldn't really think of it.
But
And that happened.
But you don't have to calculate. Like, just bring your king and do a checkmate like what you learn in a basic class.
Yeah, true, but it gets like really chaotic and you know, it like kind of pressures me.
Sounds like you need to get your nerves under control more than anything. You just need to just be calm. Remember, it's a game. Don't worry about all that stuff. Like, you know, if
I
you
got the feeling I was winning for quite a bit.
where starting the opening or later on.
No, after the opening, it looks like I've got a good fringe.
Yeah, actually, you did at the part where the pawn's on d5 and white is castling short and everything, right?
I just messed it up.
After g5, I think you're actually doing more or less okay. I just want to mention something about the opening. So this idea with playing g4 is pretty typical when black plays bishop g4 to begin with. Usually in Scandinavian, excuse me, white will, I'm sorry, black will put the bishop on f5, not g4. So that's the better placement in this kind of structure.
Well, I have a question. If
Yeah.
G5, what about knight H5? Doesn't it just blockade everything?
G5, knight h5, d5 I think is winning. This was what I was trying to get at here. I think probably it's a disaster for black after g5 and d5. Do you guys have any argument with that? I think it looks pretty good.
I knew about this.
Okay.
Maybe instead
I
of
think
like copying
minus
the
0.5.
I'm not sure.
Oh, so Anand, you analyzed this already?
No, generally you're not supposed to move your bishop to bishop g5. You're supposed to move it to f4.
Yeah, that's more strategy.
But nobody plays the
Yeah, everyone in
correct
the
line.
internet just plays bishop G5. No one plays bishop F4.
Wait, what do you mean bishop g5? I thought you were talking about pawn g5.
No. A lot, like the when you're playing Scandinavian, right?
Okay,
Like a lot
yeah.
of internet users, they just play bishop G5. But it's like become more popular than bishop F4. I mean bishop F5.
Oh, but bishop g4 is just bad. Like, it's been known bad for, like, more than 30 years. So, why would they play it? I mean, yeah, online you might do this, but it doesn't have any reason to be popular. Like, a strong player will just beat bishop g4. So, like, the way you should play this...
No to castle queenside.
Yeah, that's one general thing. But I think the position also plays itself. Like, let's say you play just d4, like normal stuff. e6, normal. Bishop to, I guess, d2, why not? c6. I don't know if I want to play knight d5 right now, or if I want to, like, play queen e2 first. They're both very dangerous, so it's like white has a luxurious choice. Even knight e5 is very good here. So, I don't see what black is playing for. Like, yeah, maybe it's fashionable, but you should take advantage of that fashion. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, okay.
It's just not good to play like this. Maybe knight d5, queen d8, knight f6. If they play queen f6, I think they're trapped, bishop g5. So they have to play pawn takes, and then they're just much worse. You play queen e2, castle long. Anyway, so in the game, we ended up with this position where you play knight e5, but I think you're winning on move 12. Saketh.
Move 12?
Yeah, I think on move 12 you're winning with g5. That's why I was confused. Like, you guys were talking about, like, bishop f4, bishop g5, and I was, like, not sure. Pawn g5 is just winning, I think. Like, you play g5 on move 12. I just played it on the board. I know there's a little lag, but after knight h5, I was thinking pawn d5 and just blow open the center.
I think it might have been better. I think it looked better, but I think black could have pulled this.
How?
Maybe just instead of capturing, maybe just move a piece to guard the square of
What?
e6.
To guard e6, but like what? Bishop f5?
No, probably like knight c5 or something.
Knight c5? Oh, okay.
That's get chaotic.
I just play pawn takes e6.
E6?
What if I castle?
Yeah. Castling instead might be good. So let's look at that next. But first, pawn e6. What were you going to play, Saketh?
Maybe knight c5. I'm not sure.
No, I mean knight c5 is already there. So I played g5, knight h5, d5, and you said knight c5. But I'm taking on e6. So what do you do?
You can then capture back.
I win material. Like, do you really want to play that? I just take with bishop e6. It just doesn't work. So probably castling is better, like what Anand said. You should castle here.
Yeah.
But even this is...
Yeah, you cannot take the pawn after that.
This is just so chaotic.
Is coming.
Actually, no, I can still take it. Doesn't matter. You can play rook e8. That's fine. I'll play pawn takes d7 check.
Maybe, I think maybe white could gambit something. I mean, black could gambit some pawns, I guess.
But you're not gambiting, you're sacrificing, because it's not part of the plan. It's just like your position's deteriorating. Yeah,
I think I mean, white should still have an advantage. But
What?
after knight c5, d takes e6,
Mm-hmm.
and then we'll probably just go kingside castle.
Right now?
Then
Oh, okay.
yeah, I'm gonna try like fighting for a like opening of the e file, which is really open. So yeah.
I think that every time I take on e6, it comes with check. That kind of ruins your plan. Like, let's say I castle long. In that position, you would be playing either knight b3 or pawn e6 or something different, right? Because if you play knight b3, it's check. I'll play a takes b3. But you still cannot capture on e6, because if pawn takes e6, I'll play queen e6 check, king b8, and then I just have full development, and I'm up material.
I think white was winning in this like combination.
So what's interesting about this for me is that this is nearly by force from the moment you play bishop g4. This position can happen very reliably for white. So I think this is pretty much busted. You shouldn't play bishop g4. But knight e5, like what you played, it's kind of a common sense move, but it's not the strongest move. I don't think so anyway.
Yeah.
Like after these trades, it's pretty much like black is equalizing, and so we got a position that was very interesting because, like what Anand said, he said he got a good French at some point, and I think after 17 g5, this is the moment where he kind of has that better French. The bishop on d2 is stunted.
You know what to do with it.
Yeah, I mean, you have to just survive. The French isn't very good. There was this awkward thing, though, that you guys both missed. So I thought g5 was not a good move. I thought bishop a4 was a very good move. The reason is that...
Bishop a4 like a lot of...
Yeah, like 5 times. But here, if you have it bishop a4, but not pawn g5, king e7 is not good, right? Because of bishop g5. So what do you do?
Wait, where again?
So on move, yeah, I know there's a little bit of lag and stuff. So after h5 for black, you played g5, but I think g5 is not so good. If you play bishop a4 check instead, they cannot play king e7 because of bishop g5. So
well, I think they could play the king e7 because after bishop g5, f6,
pawn takes.
Oh, your rook is blocked.
If you play bishop g5 f6, pawn takes f6 check, pawn takes f6, even if I just move my bishop away, I think white's advantage is pretty stable.
yeah.
I think it's also possible to go completely insane and like castle long, because after pawn takes g5, your king's like too much in the middle. I'll play rook takes d7. I'm sorry, rook takes d5. I haven't played it on the board. Maybe I should. So let's say I castle long, crazyville. Pawn takes g5, rook takes d5, threatening rook d7.
Yeah.
It's like impossible to face. You have to play rook a d8 to avoid a disaster. But then after rook h e1, I think you're almost checkmated. Maybe you can play like bishop f7, but then I can just start taking stuff. Like I could play rook g5 still with threats, or you know, it's just the fun kind of doesn't end. And this is not even forced. Maybe white could play something more relaxed, like bishop to d2, or maybe bishop takes f6. That might also be interesting, but it's a little crazy. So maybe bishop d2 is like normal. So yeah, move 17. I think this is where you lost the thread. g5 is not so good. But let's speed it up a little bit. So rook c8, bishop a4, castling's gone. But it was hard for black to make moves, like what Anand said.
Yeah, I think I messed up the position where like it was kind of like in Zung Zwang, but I wasn't.
Yeah, you can't really improve your position at all, right? It's not Zugzwang because it's not like if it was the other person's turn, you would have something great to do, but it's very tense. So on move 22, or I'm sorry, on move 23, you played bishop c2 and you gave up your good light square bishop. So why did you do that, Saketh?
Wait, I mean, I felt like Black's bishop was actually decent because he was controlling the h1, so like, um, h7 to d1 diagonal, and I think like my bishop was only like basically only doing controlling two squares.
Like d5?
One, two, three, four. Yeah, four squares. And on the other hand, Black's bishop was doing controlling a lot more squares.
Sure, but I think one good strategy in such situations is to vacate the diagonal. Just don't use any of those squares. Like, you could play king h2, so bishop e4 doesn't matter. And then you could, like, bring the rooks to the center with rook e1, rook d1. And then you're going for some kind of either bishop g3, f4, f5, or you're going for bishop takes d5, and then e6 type stuff. Some sacrifice. See, the king's in the center, so you have to try to keep these kinds of possibilities alive. But at the same time, you know, you had 5 minutes and 30 seconds here. I can understand playing for equality. I get the feeling that's what you were doing.
Yeah.
Another interesting option, after bishop takes c2, maybe queen takes c2. Did you think about that at all?
1 second.
Yeah, sure.
After bishop takes c2.
Yeah, maybe you could play queen c2 instead.
I don't see what that does.
Well, it's threatening g6, but probably Anand, you would play pawn g6 yourself anyway, right?
I don't think that's good though.
You don't think so?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. What's bad about it? I think they're both just kind of like they're okay moves.
Sorry, they're equal.
Yeah, I think they're pretty much equal. Because g6 locks everything up pretty nicely, and so it's.
I wanted to go like, I wanted to try in way to the f file with queen. I think that rook takes c2 is like saves more time when you're doing that.
Yeah, maybe, but how is the rook on c2 getting closer to an attack on the f file?
No, the queen.
Oh, you think the queen gets closer?
The f file, yeah.
I think it's kind of the same. It's not very effective either way. You know, like, even if you get it, he'll just defend it with one piece. I think this position's basically like a draw. You know, black can just force a draw if they want to. And what we saw was stalemate, so maybe we will fast forward to that part. So lots of moves happened, lots of crazy stuff. And I think black is maybe losing after rook takes c4 on move 36. Because it's just so hard to get the rook on f8 involved that after, like, any move, you know, he played king d8 to, I guess, avoid maybe rook c8. But he just got checked back anyway.
Yeah.
I think when I was born in this position, white should have brought his other bishop
but
to...
then the time pressure really like got to me, and then yeah.
Where did you want the bishop to be, Anand? Where do you think it should go?
White's dark square bishop is not doing anything, so it should come to the other side.
Yeah, maybe you could play bishop f4, e3.
Bishop e3 looks like a good square.
D2 to attack a5 is also very sensible. In fact, they're all sensible. So another interesting idea I had is like bishop f4, right? And then bishop c1. And if you combine with rook c8, you might be able to play bishop a3 attacking the rook. Or just put it on d6. Lots of cool options. But I think you let the bishop sit like a pawn for the whole game. I think I was making fun of your bishop on the air. Rook d6 on move 44.
Yeah, I think that if the bishop was like on in those attacking square, like maybe like say bishop d2 for instance, or maybe bishop e6, it could have easily came to b6 or like a5.
Yeah, there's so many avenues to get on a good square like d6. It just had to happen one day. I remember you guys missed a tactic at some point. Let me see if I can find it.
48. Move 48.
Yeah, I think it's around 48. Rook c7, right? You missed that?
Move 48.
Yeah, I thought on move 48, instead of rook b2, rook c7 was better. But you know what? He ended up stepping in a trap anyway. So.
I was actually preparing the trap for him.
But what if rook c7? I think the only move is king b6, right?
And then you start pushing.
Yeah, because here the rook is guarded by the bishop.
Yeah, I think taking was really bad, to be honest.
I wonder though. Maybe d7 is not that strong because after rook d8, how do we progress? Maybe it's just a calculation exercise, but rook c8 is not like an immediate win. Maybe instead we should play. I don't know. Maybe we're kind of stuck. Maybe we could start improving the king.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
But black cannot do anything either.
Yeah. So maybe king
Rook
g2.
D8, yeah, I rook d8 and then
And then that's it.
d8, and then bishop to e8.
Bishop e8. What do you mean? Oh, bishop e7.
Yeah, bishop e7.
But d7's hanging,
then
right?
bishop d6.
Hold on. I think you went too fast. If you play rook c8, they can just play rook takes d7. So there's no need for bishop e7.
Oh wait, never mind.
So the challenge here, I think, is like white is not trying to promote the pawn necessarily. It's just that they want the option so that black's pieces are tied down. So probably we just have to try to walk in with the king after this. Like king g2, king f3, king e4, king e5, king f6, and try to just win these kingside pawns. This is probably the way to go. Oh, there's actually another winning plan. I just didn't realize. Bishop e5, bishop f6. But the rook is hanging on c7. Yeah, never mind. I think you just have to bring the king in. I think that was the winning plan. Anyway, and then, so, there was this blunder with bishop takes d6. On move 4...
I saw it as I moved it.
Yeah, it's terrible. It's because you have 1 minute left, that's all. So...
Yeah,
But still, logically, we should improve this rook on f8, right? It's been sitting doing nothing all along. If I want to take on d6, I'd like to take like with rook d8. So I think this was a major moment for a possible comeback. Maybe rook c2 is still fine for white. I'm not that sure. Because the threat is bishop e3. So what would we do, right? Probably king to d5. And if rook d2, we could play bishop to d4. And the idea is if you start giving pressure with bishop e3, we play pawn e5. And the pawn on d6 is dead. It's just not coming back. If you play f4 to try undermining, rook d6 guards the bishop on d4. So pawn d6, king d6, everybody's safe. I think this is how black would... Yeah?
Yeah, I took his pawn because it was so far advanced that by instinct
You like-
I didn't like it there.
You're like worried about it? Yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't have time to calculate it. So.
You probably also saw bishop f4 and movie check. Mm-hmm.
and then yeah, it was kind of really hard.
Yeah, it was all bullet stuff at this point, yeah. But in bullet, best form, like when you reach the part where you win the rook, the best form is just to bring your king. Like after 68, rook f7, you should play king g3, king f4, king e5, king d6. And if the rook is under attack, just move it far away, like rook a7. You'll get a checkmate in no time. You shouldn't be like pawn grabbing, because that takes a lot more time and effort and calculation than creating checkmate threats and activating your king. So that's the bullet tip. Just bring your king in such
Yeah,
situations.
I'm not really like a main like.
I don't like bullet.
I'm not
I hate it.
that fast on like in computers like maybe OTG I'm decent, but like in computers I'm not like I don't have like the I guess clicking speed.
Yeah, we are in competition for being the worst clickers on the planet, I think. You know, I always misclick. Even on stream, my arrows are like all over the place.
I don't really I like misclicks now, but I just feel like I don't have like a mouse, so it doesn't like the.
You're using a trackpad?
Yeah, I'm just using a touchpad. Yeah.
That's terrible. But
Yeah.
Hikaru grew up doing that.
Rook h7 checkmate.
Yeah, he should have, but I don't know. He just never got it. So let's look at this Alapin one, because I don't want to see that stalemate again. It's burned into my eyes. It hurts. So this next one was c3. I don't know if d4... Maybe I just am forgetting my theory because, I don't know, I'm old and not playing that much chess. Alright, I'm not actually that old, but I feel old.
No, I think
So
this is theory, but
this is still theory with d4, but is it good theory? That's what I'm wondering. Because usually people approach this with knight f3 in. Like, after knight c6, knight f3.
Would probably play instead of e6. They probably just play d5. D5 is just the most solid option, right?
Yeah, I think you should play d5, pawn takes, queen takes, knight
If
c3.
they play e6, so there's definitely like the option to play. I always go for d5, so that I can trade down.
Mm-hmm. But
And then it's just a better pawn.
I don't think it's that that better. I mean, in this game, it turned out that was true, but it's not always the case. Like, hold on, I'm gonna just check the book and see. Like, okay, so d4 is the top move in this position. I'm just forgetting. See, when I play black, I always play d6 or something like that in this position, or knight f6. So I'm not really familiar with knight c6. Looks like d4 is good. Maybe knight c6 is actually a small error. Against c3, I like knight f6.
Well, knight c6 isn't an error, I think, because you can play d5, but that didn't happen in the game.
But
So,
but
yeah.
where d5? Because I think if you play d5 on move 4, they'll just take and play knight c3 with tempo. Oh wait, there's queen d4. Never mind. Hold on, is this theory? Maybe
No, but then you just capture the pawn, but aren't you winning?
Shh. I don't know if this is winning. Like, it's a lot of development. Maybe bishop e3. Yeah, maybe bishop e3. What do you think?
Well, it still looks better.
What move are we on?
Okay, so on move 4.
Knight c6.
Hold on. Let me just tell the line so Anand's on our same page. So after move 4, c takes d4. I was looking at d5 because Saketh was saying this is like an equalizing line. At least I think so. After pawn takes d5, queen takes d5. I was thinking knight c3. And after queen takes d4, I'm not that confident that black is okay after bishop e3. Maybe it is just a pawn, but I see like knight b5 is coming up, knight d5 is coming up, bishop b5 is possible. The white's development
Bring my queen back, like a Scandinavian.
to d8.
Yeah, also, I was actually
I guess.
wanting to go, I probably want to go knight f3 first, and
Eh.
then maybe go for Dalapin, because like a lot of people just go for knight variation these days.
Yeah.
Like d6, and then if you go, then sometimes I just go to c3, and then if knight f6, and then I'll probably just go on.
Then you play bishop e2, like bishop e2. Yeah. So
bishop e2.
let's come to that line.
Because of queen a4.
I think this position with queen d8, this is like a theory question, so we could look at this all day. So we'll go to the game then. But yeah, just a quick thing about what Saketh was telling. So if you play knight f3 first, and we play like knight f6, bishop e2 actually in this position is not possible because knight's on c6. But it's worth mentioning that in the lines where black plays d6 first, you can often defend e4 using tactics. Like you'll play knight f3.
I think so, yeah. It's always like the tactics that
Yeah.
defend that pawn.
Yeah, queen a4 is a very common idea, so it's just worth knowing for the viewers that this double attack protects e4. So anyway, in the real game, after 5 d5,
Yeah.
I think white has some advantage. What were you saying?
Oh wait, nothing.
Okay. So after knight e5, the knight stands well for Anandh, but it's nevertheless very difficult to deal with this bad d6 pawn. Frequently in positions like this, black will have a pawn on c5, like in the Benoni, and white will have a pawn on e4. So in a position like this with one extra set of pawns on, the e4 pawn can become a tactical target, and the c5 pawn guarantees black a majority going into the endgame on the queen side. But in a position like this, without any target on the e-file, and without any queenside majority, black just has less space. So I think it's very hard.
Tactic is also bad. At least if that was like an isolated pawn, then black would have some kind of thing for I guess. But,
Yeah. It's not even a backward
not an
pawn, yeah.
isolated pawn, and that pawn is just like a lot of
So we got an interesting position after...
Already worried here.
Yeah, you should be. This is a very hard position. On the air, I was thinking like, okay, Anand's gonna lose this game, so what's it going to be like if we go to Armageddon or something? But it ended up not going all the way.
Yeah, I messed up the last game.
Yeah, this was a tough match, but that's what we like. It's good to have such a close match. So after h4 on move 10, I thought h5 was maybe not necessary. Like, let's say you realize that you're worse, you want to consolidate your position, and you play like bishop e7. If white plays h5, I think bishop g4 is maybe it's okay.
Bishop e4, then what about bishop e2?
I'll just trade and play knight e5 and just try to hunker down. You know, if we trade one pair of minor pieces, it's much more tolerable for black. See, here we can play knight to e5. And I agree white is still better, but it's maybe not so bad as what happened in the game. So I think it was worth trying to encourage white to waste some time with h5 by just get your development going. h5 is very weakening. That's how the knight ended up on g5 later on. And it's also why bishop d3 was a major threat. If the pawn was on h7, you would just take back on g6. So I think h5 was kind of like the nail in the coffin. Maybe it's too much. Okay, so bishop e2, major threat. Bishop d7, not so bad. Knight f3 going for g5, looks good. Queen a5, pretty ambitious, but you have to get your pieces in somehow, I guess. Castling short, just simple chess, white's better. Bishop e7, finally developing. Bishop g6. So after, I'm sorry, bishop d3, rook h6. I think the rook is very misplaced on h6. You've kind of made it like...
The rook is like terrible over there. And you also had to move the rook many times.
Yeah.
I think you moved it from h7 back to h6 again.
Mm-hmm.
At some point, I was just trying to survive. I wasn't calculating anything. I was just reacting to whatever threat was present.
I think what you should do here is maybe sacrifice a pawn somehow. Like, maybe knight e5 just for small counterplay.
Yeah, I think you should have given up something. At least so your position is like completely lost.
Yeah, the h pawn is also hanging, so you might get something.
For a sacrifice,
Like
for
knight
the
d5?
game.
Oh, I thought maybe
I'm not really sure, but
on 14, knight d5 is also possible, maybe. The idea with knight d5 is that after knight takes d5, queen takes d5. Yeah, you're going to lose a pawn, but you do it in the most complicated way possible. After queen takes d5, bishop takes g6, your queen's hanging, so you have to play queen takes d1. And white wins a pawn by playing bishop takes f7. And after king takes f7, rook a d8. I'm sorry, rook a takes d1. Okay, maybe it's... I'm not sure how bad it is, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Because here, the pawns are even. The d6 pawn is very weak, but after bishop g4, I think you might be able to get rid of your weak pawn. The idea is that if you play bishop takes d6, we can play bishop takes f3 as an in-between move since it hits the rook.
I didn't realize about bishop f7, so...
Yeah, I think you maybe had to see all that stuff. But if... I don't know, Anand, did you see that? Because knight takes d5 looks like a free pawn if you don't see anything. So I feel like it's very common sense.
In my mind, I had already lost.
Okay, so you just gave in here. So I guess it makes sense. You can like just call it a scratch and move to your next game. So let's move ahead a little bit and just see if there's one more interesting moment.
Around like move 18, like move 17 to maybe like move 23, there are like some tactics probably, which I think I might have missed.
Move 22 is like losing. I think you missed some stuff here, but not that much. Like after knight h7, I think you should decline. I think you should play knight g to e4 on move 17. Just don't trade for the bad knight on h7. Go after the weak d6 pawn. I think this is most sensible.
That makes sense.
Like h4 is hanging as well, but I think getting the attack going on black's king is very, very powerful.
I mean, I just wanted the rook to just go back again.
You just wanted to see him move his rook 20 times. I would too, actually. I think it's funny to watch the rook just move back and forth. Anyway, let's see the last game, because this was the decisive one.
I think there's some tactics on like move 22, maybe some like sacrifice or something.
Nah, I think you're just winning after rook e1. There's nothing really to see. It's like any move is winning.
We're done with on computer analysis. If you go to move 21,
You're checking computer analysis during our postmortem?
because you're done, it's done basically.
No, we have one more game.
Oh no, for this game, not for the other game.
Oh yeah, this,
You realize that on move 21, if you go rook takes e7, it's kind of crazy, and then you go rook takes e7.
and then bishop takes d6, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that too, but whatever the computer says, it doesn't really matter. Like, what's the magnitude of your advantage for the second best move?
I don't know.
Just check it. Like, hold on, I'll turn on the engine too. I hate this, but I'll do it. So,
I think everything was winning.
yeah, engine is calling bishop e5, rook. Maybe it's calling even more stuff. I don't know how to make it show more lines though.
Like it says like I'm missing so many stuff.
Yeah, but it doesn't really matter. Like,
Yeah, definitely
you're like +4, so there's nothing really to show. So
And then eventually at the end it became like 9 plus 19.
that doesn't mean anything. Like, what is a plus
Yeah.
19? Is there a 19-point piece? Yeah, 2 rooks and a queen advantage. All right. So anyway, let's look at the final game, our last Scandinavian. I think probably. Hold on. Who's our resident? Uh, we have some person. Dinesh really likes Scandinavian, so I think he was disappointed.
Yeah, then I feel
Disappointed in you. Maybe if you didn't play Scandinavian, you'd have better chances. Oh, also, Melee Police was here. So anyway, D3 is a very unambitious line.
Scandinavian. I mean, I just played it like Blitz games.
Mhm.
I'm not like the biggest fan of it in like actual regular games, like more than 10 minutes.
So what would you actually play over the board if it was E4?
I'd probably just play E5 to be honest.
Yeah, I think it's good to practice it in Blitz as well.
Or if it's Blitz, I might go Sicilian because you have a lot of attacking chances.
You certainly have more choices in Blitz than you do in over the board standard chess. So it's good to try different things, but I'd say best not make a habit of playing Scandinavian, no matter what John Bartholomew says about it. So Anand, when you played D3 on move 7, were you just hoping to get like a stable, solid position and just play chess, or?
Yeah, D3 is not really good. A lot of people play it, but like it's not that good.
I think
It looked alright to me.
D4 again.
I think it is all right. It's hard to dunk on D3 because when I played Scandinavian as my main weapon,
Because
like-
generally you want to play D4 as well. Like
sure, but it also gives you big problems, right? Like you have no targets. Without D4, you have no targets as black.
yeah, true.
It stunts your bishop. So it's not like a totally stupid move. It makes a lot of sense. In fact, when I was playing Scandinavian as my main weapon back in 2013, I took like third in the under 2000 category in World Open playing Scandinavian. And D3 was one of the lines that gave me a hard time because when your goal is to win the tournament playing black, you know, it's hard if your opponent plays D3. So, like, let's say you're in the last round of a tournament and you have to win if you want first. You know, you get $13,000 and
Yeah.
you know, they play D3. You have to make something happen.
Yeah, I was expecting like a Roy Lopez instead of like a Scandinavian in general.
Sure, but
I-
that's up to you, right? You had to play E5 if you wanted a Roy Lopez. So you kind of nipped that in the bud yourself.
I mean, no, I thought that like in the other games, like where I did actually play, I think I played E5 one game.
You did, but it was a center fork.
Yeah. I have some good preparation as like Roy Lopez and against Roy Lopez, and I was actually expecting more of like King's Indian stuff. Because I was actually preparing the King's Indian for Anand.
So just from seeing his games, you were kind of expecting that.
Yeah.
I guess you guys were all out of prep, and I think Anand put himself out of prep, and that kind of threw off your strategy too. But you know, Anand also got a very good position in this game. I think after Queen E2, White has a pleasant edge
Yeah.
on move 14.
I thought he was winning at some point.
Uh,
Right before the end game.
maybe I'm actually
In the end,
Losing
I
my
think
memory.
That, taking on C4 was like the blunder that lost me the game.
well. Actually, I think you're wrong for playing King H7. I think this is where you started going wrong because I also had a game like this in some major event years ago where I tried to play King H7 and Rook H8, and I just got checkmated. Like it was really awful. I think this kind of plan basically never works. Like unless there's some profound target way down on the H file that you can actually win attacking with just one rook, it's just not. It's never going to work. So, in this position, I think what you should do is maybe change gears and play like E5 or activate your rooks. Maybe try to be more frustrating and play A5, something like that. So King H7 was kind of a blunder. Rook H8 giving up the bishop pair is also a big mistake. The only reason you
What move is it?
oh so he played King H7 on move 14. This is a mistake.
Yeah.
Rook H8 on move 15, mistake. On move 16, knight takes d6 is good. I think that you have a solid edge on Anand. And then, but
That fine kind of the advantage. I think I had a little bit of advantage.
Queen F3, I think Queen F3 spoiled it. Like after
Yeah, Queen f3 was. I don't know what Queen f3 was.
I'm sorry, knight e5 makes a lot of sense, but I think white still has a tiny edge because after queen e3, um, knight c4, pawn c4, the knight can't reach d5. So white has a bishop against knight endgame that's slightly pleasant. Actually, on the air, I think I said something stupid. I just realized. I think on the air I said queen f4. No, actually, it's sensible. I was thinking maybe you could take back with a queen, but I think pawn takes is a little bit better.
But if Queen f4, then you can just kick the queen back with like knight h5.
Really?
Or
Can I not take the knight on e5 for free?
on e5, no h5.
You play knight h5, I play queen e5 and say thank you, right?
Oh, okay. No.
Yeah, don't do that. So anyway, got this very nice position with the bishop on c3. It was starting to look a lot like checkmate after.
Queen f3 wasn't good because I could like fork for both of them.
Yeah, hold on. So I think after rook d8, b4, rook h5, I don't think black is better at any point here, guys. I think white is just kind of cruising. But bishop f6 is probably an error. See, on move 26, bishop f6, the knight on f6 has basically no function. It's just sitting there.
Hoping for a queen trade.
Because I was actually hoping that you take bishop f6 because then I have like some room for my king, I guess. And then my pawns are a little. I mean the bishop is just a lot better, I guess.
I think the queen trade is maybe more chaotic than you were thinking. Like, let's say that they take with the queen.
After queen trade, I move my rook to a second rank and then just take all this pawn.
So you'll go directly to d7. You won't give a check first.
Yeah, that's good actually.
I I think they're both good. So let's look at rook d7 just because that's what you were thinking during the game. I think it's actually not much. Like, perhaps they would play. Oh, hold on. Maybe it is good. I was thinking rook e5 counterplay, but before you take on b7, you can play king f1 and just stop the counterplay. Actually, I don't know. Rook e4. I think it's chaotic. Like, a lot of pawns are going to leave the board, but probably white does have some initiative. So maybe it makes sense, at least practically speaking. You know, you both were down to about 2 minutes, so going for the queen trade is good. Unfortunately, pawn takes f6, which happened in the game, kind of ruins that. And I thought in this position, after queen d3 on move 27, that after queen takes b4, black is probably like close to winning.
Yeah.
But somehow you managed to spoil it. I'm trying to remember how. Rook f5.
No. On move
Yeah.
42, I took on c4. And I think I ruined it there.
Oh, okay. But I think you even went astray early in the game. Like, when you played rook f5.
I just had like went behind the pawn. To be honest, I just stayed behind the pawn. I think we could have gotten an Armageddon.
Stay behind the pawn, like, so you played rook takes c4. Oh, and then you did it again later on, right? Yeah, if you play rook a4 and then just hold your ground, I think probably you'll get an Armageddon game. You know, you have a bunch of checks, and then you played rook a4, and then after c4, if you just play, for instance, king f8, I'm not sure.
Yeah, king of 8, I think, draws. I don't think white will be able to invade.
I think king f8 is also even slightly threatening. Anand, what do you think?
On move 26.
26, okay.
King of 8 was drawn.
I actually saw that he was targeting my pawn, but I thought queen takes after queen d3, queen takes b4, queen d8 check, and I actually thought f6 was hanging. I didn't see that he was defending it.
So you thought you would just take another pawn.
Yeah, and I thought I would bring my rook in and checkmate him then.
You know, maybe it's lucky for you, because I think if he allowed you to take on f6, you might actually end up worse. For example, let's say he plays... Alright, well, king g7 just defends it, so it's tough to make a call. I was thinking king h7, queen f7, and then something like queen c4, trying to... Or maybe queen a4, trying to create a pass pawn. You can play queen f7, king h6. Maybe there's a mate here somewhere, but I'm not that sure.
No, I don't think there is a. I think queen f8 might have worked, but I'm not sure.
This is just chaotic. We'd have to analyze so much, and it was a 5-minute game, so we wouldn't know. Anyway, king g7 stopped everything, but you still got a good position. You know, rook's on d7, and you got into this kind of chaotic rook endgame, which was kind of like what you were anticipating anyway, right? You were hoping for this when you played bishop takes f6.
I knew this was losing for white when my rook comes to d7.
I don't know if it's losing,
Because
but because I mean, I think you played the best moves after rook e5, rook b7, rook e4, rook a7, rook c4, and a5 on move 35. I think you played all the best moves here, but black is nevertheless
black should not
fighting.
have exchanged queen.
Probably not, but how could he avoid it? Like, maybe on move, maybe on move 29, there's something he can do differently. What were you thinking?
No, after my rook is on d7.
After that, well then how can he avoid a queen trade? Like play queen f8?
Oh yeah, his
F7's hanging. Yeah. I think queen e1 is forced actually, because if he plays, for example, let's say he plays queen e1 anyway, but he doesn't notice rook f7. If he plays queen f2, then rook f7 is probably leading to mate. If he plays king h8, he's definitely busted, so king h6, rook h7, king g5, and I think we're gonna see at the very least the same unfavorable rook endgame with queen g3. But there's also h4 check, maybe h4 check, king g4. No, I think queen g3, forcing the queens off, is just winning for white. So yeah, he's just kind of worse either way, so he may as well trade queens. But I think the most interesting position is on move 42, where if he plays king f8, maybe it's still holding. The reason I think
yeah, that was a trap. I moved my pawn there.
Because it's going to be hard for him to just do it with check. Like like that pawn game, he needs to like king just needs to be on a square where he can give a check, and then I can't capture the rook. Oh yeah.
Yeah, you need that kind of thing.
Stay there, then I should probably just be fine.
Yeah, this is very similar to something called a Ventura position. I was thinking we might actually see a theoretical rook endgame here. The idea is that if white plays a move such as king f4, then rook c4 comes with check, and black's fine. We'll just go back to a4 next move. But if you play, for example, f4 to play king to g4 and then h5, then after king g7, king g4, it's not that clear that you're going to break through. Maybe we'll play like just any rook move, like rook a5 perhaps. Just keep making moves. Maybe rook to a2 just to make a threat. I think black has enough counterplay to survive here. The most that you could do is like maybe after rook a2, g3, rook a3, rook a8, you can try to run your king over to disturb the black rook. The maneuver would look like this. There's gonna be a little delay, but I'm drawing the arrows on the board. You play king h3, king g2, bring it all the way across the second rank, attack the rook through b2, and then play king b3, king b4, king c5, king b6. So this is kind of the winning plan, but it's also a race, right? Like the black king can also run towards the a pawn. So
I think this, since it's drawn, but yeah.
there's a lot of counterplay, but like I don't know. I guess it's still a game. There's a lot going on here.
I don't think it would. I think it would still be a draw because I don't think the king will ever reach the rook, and because there will just be too many squares for the rook to move.
Okay, so let's say that I play, for instance,
Maybe a6. I mean a7.
well, it's black's turn. I'm trying to just make a move.
Oh, okay.
All right, how about rook a4, and you play a7, right? And I just wait. I'm gonna play like maybe rook a6. Actually, yeah, okay. So I play rook a6, and you start running with the king, right? You play king f3, and I'll just try to be like annoying. I'll play rook to a3 check. You play king to e2, And in a position like this, I can't play rook takes g3 because of rook g8 check and then a8 queen. That's the motif. That's what we're trying to accomplish. So to bring the black king across to attack the a pawn is actually a significant challenge. I might play like f5 trying to bridge the gap, but at some point I have to step out in the open and it's dangerous. Like maybe king d2, king f6, king c2, king e7, king b2, tempo on the rook, rook a6, king b3, king d7. And in a position like this, I think black is actually busted. That's why I was saying maybe black can get counterplay, but I find it very unlikely. The idea in a position like this is to play rook f8. And with rook f8, you can't really get closer to the pawn because it's promoting. So you have to play rook a7, but then rook f7 wins the rook. So even though it's a very long maneuver, what?
Yeah, this is definitely drawn.
This is not a draw. Black's losing the rook.
Oh wait, how?
Look, do you see it on the stream? I just played rook f7 check.
Oh no, I'm not on the screen, sorry.
Yeah, you should check it.
Oh, okay.
Are you just analyzing with a computer, calling it a draw? I don't know. So after rook takes a7, you know, it's just over. So this is kind of the winning plan. Starting from like around here, maybe. You want to put the pawn on a7 and then run the white king over to disturb the black rook. That's the winning idea. So black can only draw if they can prevent this plan, but I just don't think it's possible. Maybe one idea.
I think it's possible because
You play c5.
The f7 pawn in general.
But white has a threat. We're gonna go promote the pawn. So what do you mean? Like let's say I play let's say I do rook a6 and you play king f3. And then you're just waiting.
I just play king h7 here.
King h7. Okay,
Yeah.
I'll play king to e3.
Let's go back. King g7.
All right, king d3.
Just go keep on repeating.
Okay,
until, like,
king
the rook
c3.
is back.
Okay, king g7, king b4, king h7.
You can even, like, draw it.
King c5. I'm just playing them on the board if you see it. So
Oh, okay.
like I'm just running in through d6. You can't just wait. Like if you just keep waiting, I'm gonna come over and promote easily. Like king b7.
What about c5?
Yeah, you have to play c5 at some point. So the point where you should play c5 is here. Right here. But then after you play c5, I can play rook c8. You have to take on a7, and I play rook c5. And I think your king is way too far away. I'm going to play king b4, king b5, king b6, and promote the pawn. Do you get it?
Yeah.
I think this is really not so simple. Maybe it looks simple in the beginning, but rook endgames have maybe like the most diverse tactical motifs. We can try all kinds of different things. But this one's kind of classic, where you just bring the king over and bully the rook. And this pattern is maybe most well known in the Ventura position, which is a situation like this where you want to go back and forth and just do nothing. But when there are lots of pawns on the board, that doesn't work because there's no checking distance. Like we can't make a repetition, even when the pawn's on a7. There's just too many pawns in the way. There's complex maneuvers with the king. Okay, so probably this is it, unless you guys wanted to touch on any other moments.
I missed your tactic on move 15.
Early in this game? 90,
Yeah, I just saw it on computer.
94?
After
I don't think there was any
rook
crack.
h8.
When you played which move?
15. After black plays rook h8 on move 15.
Yeah, I felt there were tactics here as well, like knight g5 or something.
95,
Yeah,
then
95.
king g5.
You take the pawn.
And then a sack on.
This is checkmate on f7, right? Yeah, I forgot to mention this too.
Capture. I think it's a mate and kill, yeah.
Yeah, here even rook e8 doesn't work.
Capture the knight back.
Yeah. There was
It's
a
still
sack.
very bad for black.
Pan was too slow, actually. And that was like the major problem.
Yeah.
I kept missing tactics.
Yeah, that's not the end game, and that caused me to lose.
Actually, yeah, I was talking about how knight d6 is strategically good. I think I just missed knight g5, but it's a kind of typical tactic, so we should be on the lookout for things like that. In fact, I was even saying earlier on the stream, I'm pretty sure that I like the pressure on e6, so it makes sense that this would jump out sometime. So after,
This game will just look very strange.
yeah, it is strange. Maybe after knight e4, black should play knight e4, intending pawn takes e4 and maybe knight e5 or knight f6. I'm not sure which one is stronger. Or just put something on an active square, just anything except rook h8. Okay, I think this is pretty much everything. We have a lot of other options, but this is a good match, yeah. So hopefully I'll see you guys again for another match against different players, or maybe I'll see you in the chat. We have a couple other big matches coming up.
I'm really excited to see George versus Matt.
Yeah, George versus Max should be pretty good. Those guys are from Rutgers.
I don't know their real life names, but I actually know who they are because I've seen them on stream, I think.
Max has not been. You might be thinking of Jake, but George has definitely been.
Yeah, I'm not, I don't really know.
Yeah. I mean, we're often talking with our live chess usernames anyway, just because it's like, I don't know. I always try to preserve some online privacy, but maybe first names are not so bad. Anyway, so thanks for showing up, guys. It was great, and you played some very interesting games. And I'll be seeing you guys in the Discord. And anybody who's watching who likes this, you guys can just shoot me a message on live chess. My handle is MasterMaters, and you can get in on the Discord and join a fan battle as well. All right,
Yeah.
I'm going to wrap it up here. Thanks, guys.